Hey guys, STLYoungblood with you, and today what we're going to be talking about is the Drake Herald, which was just released just a couple minutes ago as of this video. With that being said, the Drake Herald is on sale right now for $85. It will come with lifetime insurance and a poster, so that's kind of cool. Lifetime insurance is nice, and the sale should last until November 10th, so it's kind of that standard 10-day sale that we've been running for a little while. Now, this is a ship that's going to divide people because the looks are you either hate them or you love them. And I kind of lean towards love them just because I think it's so unique of a ship. It kind of is reminiscent of a B-Wing a little bit from Star Wars. And it is a very asymmetrical ship. Now, it's been said over and over that it's going to be very, very fast. And it's coming with two TR3 engines, which is going to make it very fast. It's not going to be very maneuverable, though. Now, they say that it can be modified into a racer with the proper modifications. Important to note that there's not going to be variants of this vehicle, but it can be modded into maybe performing into that role a little bit better. Before we get into the real specifics of this, one thing I want to point out is this is a relatively cheap LTI ship. So if you're wanting to get LTI on a bigger ship later, it may be worth noting that you could probably pick this up for $85, cross-chassis upgrade later, and keep that LTI for another ship later on down the line. So even if you're just looking for LTI, picking up one of these and making it into another ship may be an approach you want to look into. So just throwing that out there. They go on to talk about this ship and say that you're going to be able to grab a hold of data like whether that's UEE records or maybe that's personal records of people. It's a small armored ship, so it looks like it might be pretty durable. And it's basically, like we expected it to be, an information runner, taking info from point A to point B and doing it fast as hell. It's got the two thrusters I mentioned, TR3s. Now, if you compare that to something like an M50's got two TR2s, so this is going to be fast. Now, it is, I think it's, I'm trying to remember, I think it's 6 or 8,000, I can't remember off the top of my head, kilograms heavier than the M50, so I think it is going to balance out. And the M50, as we know, is extremely maneuverable. So I wouldn't expect it to be the best racer out there, but as far as the rockets that are strapped on the back of this thing, it is going to be fast in a straight line. Outside of that, it is just a really interesting, unique ship. There's some nice info running abilities, like it's going to be hard to, steal the information. If you're captured, you're going to be able to kind of clean the hard drives. You're going to be able to wipe them off. It's got the abilities to prevent things like EMPs going off and causing damage or damage to the data. And then, in addition to having the dishes that can collect information, it's also got the broadcast array to transmit information. And I'm not exactly sure how that's going to play out in the universe, but it is worth noting, and I think it's a pretty cool aspect of this ship that a lot of people are probably overlooking. So overall, if we just take a look at the stats, it's a pretty small vessel, 23 meters long, 15 meters wide, and about 10 meters high. 18,000 kilograms, so that's really about it. Now, that being said, it's got a max crew of 2 people, and that's one more than I expected it to be. So you can see in there that you've actually got the ability to have a pilot and then probably somebody dedicated to actually, taking a look at the data that you're collecting and maybe aiming dishes or broadcasting stuff. So something I wasn't expecting to see, but I do think that's very cool. It's only got 8 TR1 maneuvering thrusters, so that really plays into the lack of maneuverability, and how the asymmetrical nature of that plays into it further. We'll have to see, especially once we get it into the engine. Outside of that, it's got a max shield of 3, which is a decent size shield overall. I think it comes stock with a size 2. And then it's got a couple size 1 weapons on it, not much of real noteworthy nature. So stats-wise, fast, potentially durable, but really focused on that data roll. I think what we're going to really see out of this thing is collect data and get the hell out of town. Alright guys, so I know the audio gets a little bit wonky when I start recording desktop, but let's just take a look at this ship overall. And I think it lives up to that concept art that we actually saw. It's got this long wing off to the side. Initially, I thought that it was possible that could have been some sort of like radar array, but it looks like it's just purely serving the purpose of a wing. We've got this radar dish over here on this chunky little side, so you're starting to see the real asymmetrical nature of this ship, and there's not many of those that are like that in the universe, so that's kind of exciting. And then you've got further radar arrays up here up top. Now, whether those are pure radar or if those are more broadcast, I'm not sure. But you'll notice this flap, and when I saw those pictures, I was wondering if this is something that can actually fold down, and as we continue to go through the artwork, you're seeing that it really is capable of doing that. There you go. I think this is going to be your standard kind of transport. When you're in motion, this is going to be the best thing. Obviously there's not really any wind or drag when you're in space to where that's going to actually cause you any issues. It is going to, however, prevent you from having a rock clip that and smash the hell out of your stuff. It makes you a little bit more durable. Just kind of an option. Now, one thing I was looking at on the concept art when we first saw it was this radar dish. And I noticed before that it was split in the middle. And I kind of figured it would take it a step further, where maybe one side would rotate on the other, and then it would fold back into the wing to provide it just a little bit more durability. But it looks like, from at least this concept art, that the wing, or this dish right here, is always going to remain present. So to me, that kind of says be careful with where you're going. Try and avoid little asteroids or space debris, just because I could see this being kind of a breaking point of the ship. I don't think it's going to cause you any real harm as far as your flying ability if that gets damaged, but it is worth noting that it looks like that's not something that pulls back into the wing for safety. Cockpit design is very Drake. Looks like kind of like a Cutlass love child of some sort. And overall, it's funny. People have kind of looked at this and compared it to monkeys and bees and all sorts of creatures. The original artwork that we saw, I was okay with. But now that I'm looking at this now, I'm actually kind of a fan of it. I think it's a good look. And then here we got the cutaway, which I am a big fan of seeing this kind of approach because it kind of lets us see things a little bit better. You enter from the side. Obviously, there's not any room up here by the cockpit to make that happen. You can see the hatches on some of these other photos on the side. Coming through the hatch, notice it does have itself a little galley, a place for you to sleep, take a nap. Data bay, it says double-sided, so I'm assuming this right here is another, kind of another section of computers for you to actually collect data. That's probably why this chair right here swivels. Floor plating covering data module cache, so part of that's probably going to be, to help prevent scanning of that, kind of the data encryption. Some of that's probably also going to be so you can pull these up and modify and try and overclock stuff to get more performance out of the ship. And then finally the pilot chair. So here's our general design. I mean, that's the look of this ship, and overall I think it's pretty cool. Alright, so let's go ahead and answer the question that the series is typically about: should you buy a Drake Herald? And I think the most important thing you need to ask yourself is info running something you really, really want to do in this game? I think it is a potentially exciting type of role to play. I think when we look at it, what you're basically doing is stealing something from somebody, even though it's information. And if you get caught doing that, chances are there's going to be somebody trying to chase you and track you down. They're going to be in hot pursuit, and that could make for some really exciting gameplay. Outside of that, yes, it can technically be a racer, but I don't think it's ever going to be as good unless you're just some ace pilot. As something like an M50 or a 350R. I think that's where the flexibility lies. Maybe you can take some VIP from point A to point B who just wants to get on some ship that's going to be really good in a straight line. But even then, I think we have other ships that are probably better suited to that role. So the niche for this ship is very, very narrow. But if it's something you want to do, we haven't seen anything else that can even compete with the info running role like the Herald. There's a lot to be seen from it, though, so I don't want you guys to say, yes, I mean, absolutely. I think if you're not going to do this sort of thing very often, maybe it's not worth your while. But if it's exciting to you, it's probably something you want to jump in on. Like I mentioned earlier, a lot of people are probably going to see value in just buying this ship so you can turn something else into LTI later on down the line. From that perspective, I think it definitely is worth the purchase. So it's really going to be up to you guys. Take it however you see fit. This is kind of one of those ships where I don't have a real good answer. Is it worth it or not? I mean, it's on the lower end price range of some of the concept ships that we've seen. So from that perspective, part of me says, yeah, it is worth it. But at the same time, I personally don't think this is something I'm going to pick up just because it doesn't really fit the playstyle that I want. Although I know I've got a lot of organization mates that are drooling all over it. The choice is really yours, like all of these are. If you're interested in info running or you want LTI on something else later, pick it up. Otherwise, I would stay away from it. So that's my recommendation. That may change as we get more information on it, but as of right now, that's where it stands. Stay tuned for a whole lot more. Should be another video up soon. I'm downloading a patch about the Gladius being in the hangar, and I'll talk to you guys later. Take care.